we dedicate, and we are certainly not alone in that, but we dedicate a lot of time to thinking about, how do you create an environment where people can bring their best self to work, and just perform without worrying about any of the other stuff, whether that be your social background or whatever. We have tons of networks now at A&O for all sort of strands of D&I, and I've recently actually someone joined my team in London who's solely responsible for that, for trainees, both kind of futures and in the business.
Great to see you, James. Thanks for joining today. So if you could kick off by just telling us, who you are, the company that you work for, what that company does, and just a little bit about what your role is now.
Yeah. So thank you, Charlie. Yeah. So I'm James Partridge. I work at a company called Allen Overy, one of the sort of global law firms with offices, probably 30 plus offices now, or 40 plus offices rather, in about 35 countries. I am the early careers partner. So that covers both school leave apprenticeships and also trainees who join us on a training program after they've done their degree, whether that's a law degree or a non-law degree. Before that, and that's all I do now. So really all I'm involved in is kind of recruitment and development of young talent within the firm. We have around 160 trainees in London. We have currently 6 apprentices. Before that, I was a litigator all my time at Allen Overy. So I was a litigator for about 24 years. Joined A&O straight from university in the early 90s and became a partner there. So I've been a partner at A&O for about, I've lost track of time, 18 years.
A long time. Yeah.
Yeah, a long time.
For those people who might not know, tell us what a partner of a Magic Circle law firm is. What is that? What does that mean?
That's a good question. Yeah. Well, I suppose it's sort of the most senior lawyers in the business. So you are owners of the business, and you are responsible for the bringing in of work, the execution of that work, and the development of your team. So as the partner on a piece of litigation, I'd sort of be the person in with overall responsibility for running that.
Yeah,
and coordinating that globally, sort of thing.
And the as you said, so you were a litigator for a long time, your whole career, but now you're focused on early careers and early talent. Yeah. And we know each other a little bit, and obviously, we know Circle knows A&O. We've done lots of work together, but a big focus of that is on the diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging aspect, and bringing in people who wouldn't necessarily have thought of a career in law, or may not have access to the information and tools and resources to have previously got a job there. But you're really focused on trying to provide that opportunity and that experience to people who might not otherwise get it. So what I'd love to understand is, for you, in your own personal values and principles, why is this so important? From a practical level for A&O, but also from a values and principles level.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose practically, you just want the brightest and the best wherever they may be, and we are incredibly globally diverse firm. We serve clients in pretty much every country on the planet. So you want people from different backgrounds with different experiences, and obviously there's a lot of research now around how sort of diverse teams perform better and produce better results. So that's, I suppose, the kind of the business driver for that. I'd say the sort of personal values or the firm's values really is, just one of fairness, I suppose. That it's a phrase that I've heard a number of times, but which I like, which is sort of talent is everywhere, but opportunity isn't, and you're just trying to make that a bit more equal, if you like, and chose to try and open up greater routes into the law. Greater accessibility for people. So to create, to create those opportunities and awareness.
Yeah, no, 100%. And that, that's the impression that I've got from working with you guys and Allen Overy. I suppose something that would be kind of exciting to understand as well is where do you what's your future vision for this space for early talent, and what would you like to see in the future? What would be the ultimate fruit of all your work?
That's a very good question. I'm not sure I ever think that far ahead, but I mean, I think, well, certainly for me over the last couple of years, my focus has been quite a bit on the apprenticeships. So that's something I'm quite passionate about. And just so people understand what that is, that's where you join the firm. It's a very kind of non-traditional route, if you like, where you join the firm from school effectively, or, you don't have a degree. You work in the firm for the majority of your time, but part-time you study for a degree. And we support you, we pay you while you work for us. Your study is also paid for via the apprenticeship levy that we already pay. And then you qualify 5.5, 6 years later as a solicitor. The big value of that is you're kind of learning on the job. So you're sort of experiencing the law that you are learning about in college in real time. And you obviously, at the point of graduation, you don't have any debt. And I think what's very exciting about that is, it enables people who would otherwise be put off by, what seems to be the increasing costs of university, or who just don't fancy it. It enables, gives them that route into the law and into the city. So I think that, that has been a very specific focus for me, and I'd like to see that kind of continue to grow, while at the same time, obviously the vast majority of our intake will still be people who have degrees, but growing that apprenticeship route, I think, would be exciting. And just, I suppose, continually, we're always thinking about how you have, greater sort of reach in terms of, people that you connect with. So really thinking about, I suppose, the programs that you do, and that, maximizing the impact of that. And obviously the pandemic has sort of accelerated a lot of that thinking, I think. So whereas in the old days we would go around every university, now we can do things virtually. So actually last week I did our big virtual recruitment event, and I happened to be in New York, but I did it from New York, and it doesn't matter.
Yeah, it definitely increases access, right? I think that's the thing, and then it gives an initial step to be able to say, okay, I would feel comfortable. Maybe, I've met this organization, I think it's worth. Maybe I will meet people face to face, or go to the next step. Yeah. And engage further.
I think also one other thing, I suppose, if I was thinking radically, what I would quite like to do is kind of, but this is a personal view, I think, rather than a firm view, is sort of any ways in which you can actually shorten the journey into the business, I think would be good. And so that is sort of something I think about quite a lot. It's not, but, the traditional model has always been that you kind of front load all the education, and then you join having done your degree and having done your law exams. And that's a pretty traditional, that is a traditional model. I think it's always worth thinking about if there's ways to kind of shake that up.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you guys are doing that. And obviously I know, and for anyone watching this, a big thing that you can get involved in already, if you're interested in law, is the Grow mentoring community with, run by Justin, who's an incredible advocate for equity and inclusion, and also for getting people into the law profession. But the thing that I'd love to get into now is, obviously you've made this transition, from doing something pretty, heavily focused on litigation, to early careers and early talent, and investing a lot of time and making progress. And it sounds, as you say, to be radical, that what would be amazing is that more and more people are coming through to law firms, or to these professional services careers from non-traditional routes. And maybe there's a number in that on 5, 10, 15 years or whatever. But what we'd love to know is, like, what are the reasons that what are your personal values and your personal experience that's driven you to be involved in this and want to support young people who are underrepresented?
I think that's a good question. I mean, I get a lot of energy, I think, from younger people. I always enjoyed, like, as a litigator, I think I used to say this to the trainees, one of the nicest things about working in a really kind of high performing law firm, or any kind of high performance environment, is you have this sort of succession of young talent coming through who are really, really motivated and kind of on it, and it keeps you on your toes as you get older, and it brings a lot of energy to the team and to the organization. So I've always liked that. I think in another life I would have quite liked to be a teacher, actually. And so in terms of the lack of representation, I suppose in my own, because I think people make a lot of assumptions around the law. that you imagine there is only kind of one route in, and it's filled with people who've all come down a very sort of set path. And my experience of that isn't really true, even though that might be the perception externally. So that firms to some extent, I'd say within A&O, there's still, even at my level, there's quite a lot of sort of social diversity. And so it wasn't something that, I'm the first person in my family to become a lawyer. And I would sort of say, I was driven, I think, by that and my own kind of background. So I'll give you a bit of go into that. But, I would say I didn't have I certainly had a pretty privileged upbringing, but I was always sort of driven by my mother, who didn't, who had to leave school at 15 against her headmaster's wishes, but her parents wanted her to go to work, who felt, I think, because of that, a lot of frustration and, frankly, sort of embarrassment. And that time, I think, in England was particularly sort of class structured in a way that maybe it isn't anymore. But she was slightly obsessed with all her boys, getting good jobs, going to university. So me and my two brothers were the first people in our family, even within our own generation, actually, to go to university. So I think that, it's funny, we've ended up like a lawyer. I'm the youngest, but a lawyer, a vicar, and a policeman. So there's clearly something going on. And I think that, so my own background, I think, has always driven me to, kind of want to get into the law, to do as well as I could within it. I think it's a fascinating career. It gives you a lot of opportunity to, really use your brain, meet all different types of clients, work, different or across different parts of the world. So it's certainly not boring. And so I think that combined with my own sort of background is what really attracted me to doing something to attract, to work on the recruitment side specifically, and then the development when people are in the firm, to just, kind of increase access to the profession and to the law firm.
Yeah, I think it's something that you're completely right. There is such a perception of something like law, especially so big firms like Allen and Overy, that everyone who's a partner, or the majority, were, come from a long line of lawyers.
Yeah, exactly.
Who, or even just professionals, or privileged people from generation to generation, and they just get it. They just get in through nepotism, and that there is sometimes that misperception, and there may be some of that. I'm sure there is. But speaking to you and you championing this, and this being your main role, is the fact that you're clearly advocating through your actions. It speaks, volumes about your personal motivations for doing this, and your background is that.
Yeah, I'd say there's tons of, what surprised me as well, in a way. I thought, like, there's solicitor apprenticeships, which was, a big part of that. Why I wanted to introduce that was social mobility. The organisation we work with to advertise and to help find the applicants for that was driven very much through a social mobility lens. I had zero pushback within the firm from anyone really, on any partner, on introducing that. So I thought there might have to be a bit of this is why I want to do it, but actually, everyone has been incredibly supportive.
Yeah, well, it shows the values of a modern organisation and a forward-thinking organisation, and it's coming through. I think it gives A&O as an organisation a competitive edge as well.
Yeah, I hope so. I also, but also hope, and I think it'll probably happen, is that it does have there's a bit of a. I mean, we're not the first, but we're the first sort of what they call term in the old days, magic circle firm, to do it in the city, and I hope it does have a sort of knock-on effect, because I think you see that amongst all the big law firms, that when one does it, others tend to follow. So I really, I think it'd be great if you start seeing that becoming a thing right across the city.
Well, let's see if your equivalent in other firms join me on this conversation and reach out to our community. All right. Well, it's great to hear, and it's amazing the work that you are doing and that your team are doing, and the results are already there. Obviously, the numbers are only going to increase. But just to wrap up, what is your advice to the Circle future leaders that might be watching this? In terms of, if they're interested, not just in law, but in any organization that's of a similar kind of ilk, what would you say they should focus on and do to be able to get into it and learn more about it?
Yeah, I think I think the great thing now, as I mentioned earlier about sort of now tech is that it does create a lot more opportunity to sort of experience things in a way that you couldn't in the past. So there's a lot more kind of open access in terms of online courses and things that you can do, or just organizations' websites that you can spend time looking at, and really gives you a sense of what those organizations are like. So there's platforms that enable you to network. So I would say, I suppose always with young people, I think you've got to think about what it is that you think you like. It's hard to know. Obviously, I think there's not many 18-year-olds or whatever who say they definitively, want to know what they want to do with the rest of their life. But so I would encourage, I think, well, one thing is, the sort of networking, trying to build up your networks and your understanding of sort of organizations. So using those available kind of free resources to do that, and trying to get on programs with organizations. We run sort of now school programs and things like that, pre-university programs for people to learn about the organization. And the other thing I'd say there is just experiment, because until you sort of, whether that is in the virtual world or in the real world, but just in terms of what you think you might find interesting, and sort of, don't be put off if you read about stuff and think, actually, that doesn't sound interesting. That's fine, right? If that's not interesting to you, don't do it. But if the more you sort of spend researching stuff, making connections, I think the more you'll get a sense of what it is that you might find interesting. And often, I would say as well, though, because I think sometimes as a young person, you feel a lot of pressure to find kind of the thing. A lot of the pleasure from work comes actually from the people rather than the thing. So finding an environment in which you feel kind of comfortable, and where you think, because you spend a lot of time with your work colleagues, right? So finding that, I think, is just as kind of important sometimes as the thing itself. So if that makes sense.
Makes complete sense. So to kind of play it back, just to summarize, I think what you're saying is that exploration around two things, opportunities, but also people.
Yeah.
So, reaching out and trying to build relationships and understand the type of people as well as the type of work that you might like. And you're speaking to, an already attentive audience, right? Because they're engaging in things like Circle and other programs where they get to meet and build relationships with people, which is great. So, I think it kind of advocates and validates that approach. And then being open, I guess, is the other main thing that you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Not to put too much pressure on yourself in terms of having to find the thing. Often you'll talk to lots of people of my generation who'll be kind of. It wasn't like they had some incredible plan, right? Things just sort of happen. And
I mean, that's a great
so you'd be
way.
surprised how many partners you speak to who'd say, they're not quite sure how they got there.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing, isn't it? It's so often people think they need to have this amazing plan, and actually being open can also be described as like, just chill out, just see what happens, be positive, put your energy into things, explore. But I completely agree with you. The amount of times I've heard people say, "Oh, I kind of just fell into this."
Yeah.
And you can fall into things and experiment, and then I think the benefit that a lot of people have today is that they can also then fall out, whereas previously you might have felt like you might
want a bit of a one track.
Yeah, you might have felt that you were stuck in it before, but
and I think one thing I'd add, I suppose, because we've talked a lot. I've talked a lot today, I suppose, about kind of the recruitment side of what I do. But I think what you'll find as well, a lot of the organisations are doing. What you realise is, the recruitment is one thing, and in some respects, if you're a big successful organisation, attraction isn't that hard. The real key really is that then what you do when people are in the business. So to kind of reassure people, I think that I think a lot of organisations now are focusing more so on the inclusion kind of once you're in, and that is really important. So again, to not say people feel encouraged, I suppose that's why I want to kind of convey that, is that we dedicate, and we are certainly not alone in that, but we dedicate a lot of time to thinking about how do you create an environment where people can bring their best self to work, just perform without worrying about any of the other stuff. Whether that be your social background or whatever. We have tons of networks now at A&O for all sorts of strands of D&I, and I've recently actually someone joined my team in London who's solely responsible for that for trainees, both kind of futures and in the business. So again, I suppose I would just say that as a point of kind of reassurance in a way, but hopefully you'll be able to discern that from some of your exploration as well around organizations as to what, how seriously they take it, I suppose.
100%. I mean, an indicator is that you are speaking to Circle, which is all about helping managers and companies build inclusive coaching skills, so that when then people from underrepresented backgrounds join those organizations, those managers, those people have experience and the tools through coaching to be able to make people feel empowered and take ownership and have a sense of belonging. So, all the right things. Anyway, James, it's been great to chat today. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, great to see you again.
And I think that the advice you've given is going to really help a lot of people. So perfect. Thank you so much.
Pleasure.